and from this, do you kind of fear that we just talked about at the start, how this is going to be a big changing point in history?
Mm.
Um, do you fear that it's not going to be a changing point for animal rights? Because
I
it doesn't feel high on the agenda from what I've heard in my circles of communication.
uh it's I think it could be a turning point for the animal rights movement. I think if people start to, because we have to look at where COVID-19 originated. I mean, it's originated from a market in China with having different animals around, right? So this
Yeah,
disease does come from animals. But the thing is the contact of humans with animals in those contexts. So clearly there's a real strong link here. But I think we're really good in culture and in society and kind of like dividing things and finding reasons. So now we're separating this. Oh, of course, this happens in China because they have a wet market and they just put all kinds of wild animals like this and they kill them without any sanitation. So of course this would happen. But here, I mean, here in the West, you've seen my pictures. I mean, animals are eating each other inside farms because they're so traumatized by the way that we treat them and the way that they behaved, and there are diseases outbreaks all the time. We're just really better at containing them. But it's eating meat is not healthy for anyone. We know that. There's tons of research. Heart diabetes, heart attacks, cholesterol. Even now, there's a lot of scientists that says that animal products leads to cancer cells. Um, so I think that if people start to really look at the root of the problem, not just selectively where it happened, then we can start to understand maybe this. It's a bit of a spiritual thing too, in a way, because there's kind of a karmic approach that the way that we're treating animals is getting back to us and within a virus. So it's a bigger
yeah,
thing. It's a bigger thing to really consider, and it's just we're really killing each other because we're killing others. So and there's no necessity for that. So that's really the biggest the question. Like, what justifies that? What is it that we can keep on doing that? If it's unhealthy for us, if it's killing millions of trillions of animals a year, if it's bad for the environment, what is the justification? The justification can only be we're used to it, culture and habit. And does that outweigh all these problems?
yeah. I had a really good lecturer at university, and I don't know about other people, but his first lecture, so it was on climate change and the media,
Yeah.
and he made me personally feel kind of like silly. And I don't know how it affected the rest of the room, but
Mm.
he started off by showing us, without giving context, he showed us all these adverts and stuff about of smoking and lobbying of government officials about
Mm.
smoking, and we were all laughing at these things like, how can this exist?
Yeah, yeah.
How how is this a thing? And I couldn't help but think like in you know 30, 40 years. So these were for about 50 years ago. So
Mm.
50 years from now, could it be that these lecture is happening at the same university and they're showing the same thing, but
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
meat and stuff like that, and all these kids are laughing like, how can you be
Precise.
so stupid?
Precisely. I mean, just like this Arla had, you know about Arla, right? The dairy company. I mean, now they have
Yeah,
this ad in town where they just have this like woman touching the haze and she looks so hip and she has an iPad and she looks like this ecological farmer. I mean, it's just I can just see that they would have hired a guy like me to do the photo shoot and take a model and like had a
yeah.
stylist.
Yeah, well, it's like in those, it's like smoking's good for you. They show like
Yeah,
a big handsome man,
yeah,
and he's like smoking, and he's like riding a horse or
mm,
something, and
yeah,
like they're like, yeah, great, and then like you think, how is that real? But
yeah,
now, like if when it all changes, and with animal rights and the consumption of
mm,
animals as food,
mm, mm.
people will be laughing at it in the same way, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think the term vegan is controversial, and I think that when people hear veganism, it kind of turns them off because of what we're trying to show is so extreme that people are have defense to it because it's very personal also. But I think the thing to remember is that I used to eat meat. I used to love like eating pork. I used to eat cheese all the time. It's just that I realized what was happening, and I just became really honest with myself and said this doesn't justify me on. And of course, that wasn't just an overnight progress. I was vegetarian for years, and I laid off the dairy little by little, and then it just kind of happened. So it's not. being vegan for being vegan. It's not an ideology or anything like that. It's just more like conscious choice. And I think that's, I'd like a future where we just get rid of that term vegan, like just get rid of it, like just make it normal. You know
Yeah,
what I
it's
mean?
definitely a trigger word. It's definitely like
Yeah,
a buzzword, and it's particularly for the older generation.
yeah.
They'll roll their eyes. They'll be like, "Oh,
Mm,
vegan." This like
mm, mm.
pushing like they think more of like it from a cultural perspective rather than
Right,
what it actually is. And I
right.
think what you're saying is a lot of um, people expect, oh, vegans are going to make us just throw away all our meat and all this. And it's
Mm,
like, no, these people most of them went through this process as well. They don't expect you to one day be
no,
like, no,
no,
done, because
no.
that's hard for any habit in life.
Right,
You know,
right.
you watch too much TV, you eat too many biscuits, like
Yeah, yeah.
you
No, I get
smoke,
it.
like
And it's super hard to also be 100% ethical in those senses, because like even us as vegans, we try to reduce our consumption, but like I'm sure there are things that I do every day that are still affecting animals, because we live in a society where animal products are everywhere. And so it's really, but the point is just not to try to live up to ideology. The point is just to try to lower your impact as much as possible,
yeah, yeah, definitely.
and reduce suffering, really.
Yeah, the society is so geared towards these things. Like, uh, I heard Marco Pierre White say in a talk once. He was saying, you know, what's to stop a working class family from going and buying a chicken to have their roast dinner
Mm,
because they don't have enough money and there's cheap meat and that's their way of, you know,
mm,
not spending a lot of money and enjoying that experience
mm.
because the culture around it kind of forced you into that. It's like when that horse meat scandal in the UK. Well, it probably
Right.
wasn't just in the UK, in Europe. That these were cheap products
Mm,
that people were forced to buy that
right.
contained these like horse meat and all these
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a shift from above because a lot of people are too focused on paychecks,
Yeah.
bills, their children, to
Yeah.
then make these change. You know, all that pressure. Then you're like, well, we have to be vegan now as well. But the food I buy is cheap. You
Yeah.
know, it's cheap.
I mean, I think there's a lot of misconception about that, because like all this, like you talked about, like what other things come up, and one of the things that always come up is like, oh, being vegan is inaccessible and
Yeah.
is unaffordable. So if you take a lower class family and you say they need to buy it, I was talking to Duncan, and we're talking about vegan cheese, and he said, oh, vegan cheese is like vegan cheese is getting really good now. And I said, yeah. So I said, like, what's the reason of wanting to keep buying dairy cheese? And he said to me, well, some people will look at the price difference. And I'm like, well, like you can get vegan cheese for £2, £2.50. I don't think that's much of a big deal. It's like, yeah, but you have to know that some people will actually get cheese for 10 pence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's really shit cheese. But I mean, I
Yeah.
get I get it. But the thing is that it's also like, it's more like being vegan. You don't have to have these things. You don't have to have the vegan cheese. You don't have to have the meat substitutes. It's you only want that because we're used to eating certain animal products. Me as a vegan, I pretty much eat like very basic now. I mean, I eat a lot of beans, lentils, rice, whole wheat pasta. I buy broccoli, spinach. These are not expensive food. And sweet potatoes, oatmeal every morning,
Who
super
doesn't
cheap.
like sweet potatoes? Sweet potatoes are.
Yeah. So I mean, like I've kind of also like reprogrammed myself into eating more healthier and more simpler, and not always wanting like this kind of junk food. And actually now it's kind of interesting because it's almost been a year, and I don't go for. I mean, I bought vegan ice cream and it's been in the freezer for like 2 weeks now, and I had a box
Whereas
of
normally you
yeah,
just
and I
yeah.
just had two in the last 2 weeks, like one once a week. And something like here, I have vegan chocolate, and I bought this about 2 weeks ago, and I just finished the pack. So then you start to really question, like, fuck, these products are actually really addictive. And we're used to a certain chemical response. But then when kind of reprogram yourself and go to more simpler foods, you realize it's not that hard, and you realize that it's quite affordable. And a vegan lifestyle can be super cheap. It can be the cheapest thing ever. I mean, like I said, beans, lentils. I mean, these are like have high protein. You put a frozen spinach, frozen peas. You get
Yeah, I
everything.
think I think that's been broken. The health thing,
Yeah,
the protein thing. I
yeah,
think people are finally starting to be like, okay,
yeah, yeah,
you can, because it's true. Like a lot of athletes who need the best kinds of proteins and
yeah,
stuff have all said, we
yeah,
we are vegan.
yeah,
So I think that's actually probably the first one, because I remember a lot of people. I mean, it's not gone, but I remember a lot of people making that argument. Like,
yeah,
how are you supposed to? You need the meat to be
yeah,
big, big
yeah,
muscles.
yeah,
Uh, I
yeah,
think that's broken, and
yeah,
I hope that it continues to change. I mean, like,
yeah,
it's kind of hypocritical me saying that and not doing it, because I'll be honest,
yeah,
I'm lazy. Like the Buddhist monk was saying, you got to be honest with yourself in this period. There's a
yeah,
time where you be brutally honest,
yeah, yeah,
and if I'm brutally honest with myself,
yeah,
I I'm very happy to publish your work and help you through all these means. But being brutally honest, I won't back it up with my own actions.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and these are the things that I hope will come in my life in this period,
I
and
mean,
and for other people.
I think you can be conscious of it, and for a long time you can put it out of your mind because you focus on different things, and this is not maybe a priority to you. I mean, I remember when I was a vegetarian, there was a girl that came up to me, and she was vegan, and she gave me a pamphlet, and she started talking to me, and she's like, "Oh, you're vegetarian?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, so what are you still eating?" And I'm like, "I love cheese. I love cheese so much, I can never give it up." And she's like, "Yeah, cheese is always the last thing." And I knew she was right deep down. I knew that, and I knew myself, one day I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I went on 2 years before I did, and just one day, it just happened. So I think like just being aware of it already, just kind of, I don't know. At some point, it's hard to say. Like it's either you're ready or not. And I think that in terms of activism, many people feel forced when we push this agenda, but it's not being forced. It's more like we want people to make their own realization. So we put information out there. That's why I do this documentary work, hoping that people will start pondering over this. Because if not, you're never going to ponder over it, and you're always going to brush it off. But as soon as it enters your mind, then I think, and that's why photography is so powerful, because an image always allows the viewer to reflect over it.